Hi, and welcome to Montana State of Mind with me, Montana. It is so hot. It is quite hot and a little humid, if we're being moderate here. But it is the pits of July. It is hot, and I didn't want to do a lot of research and stuff because my brain just can't work. And so what I did do that I will tell you about is I bought a lot of old 80s grandma smut novels. I bought like 9 or 10 of them. And I was wondering what all the fuss was about back in the day. And honestly, let's take a look at some of these covers because these are works of art. If they had this on canvas, I would buy it immediately. And I actually thought of doing that when I bought these because I was like, I'm going to read some because I just want to. I want to see what all the fuss was about back then. But if not, I can always take the covers and make like a really cute collage picture kind of thing. But now, having read some, I can't. Because y'all, these little books, not little, these are actually like really chunky books. Wowie, wow, wow, wow. Was not expecting the level of drama, religion, violence, romance, political intrigue, the themes in these little books. It's a wonder why more women who read these aren't more progressive, because these novels have for the 80s very progressive themes. Now, I'm not saying they're perfect. They are of a time. Okay, there is a little language, there is a little theming that might be a little, if written today. But so is like RuPaul's Drag Race season 2.
Big as she is, she had one suitcase. Raven. She didn't have no country. She don't own no country. She's as big as a country.
You can't hold the standards of today to these books. But I was surprised that this book made me cry, made me go, what? A few times. I'm just speechless. Now, later in this video, I will tell you what happens in Desert Captive. We're going to be reviewing this little bad boy. I read this one first because look at this cover. Gorgeous. Let's talk about the covers here for a second. We don't see this anymore. We don't see this level of artistry, color palette. I mean, this is gorgeous. This is it reminds me of the care and level of artistic creativity that T.J. Jacobus gave the Goosebumps novels. We just don't see it. We don't see it. I don't know if it's maybe because artists are suffering. I don't know, but we need to bring these back. If I ever write my novel, I'm going to have a cover that looks like this because this is everything. This is beautiful. And we saw these in I know every grandma, mama, and auntie, and maybe some uncles had these in a basket next to their rocking chair, right here, under some yarn, they were crocheting, maybe, when their husband's out and their kids are outside playing, they reach in their basket and they read a little Forever and Beyond, or a little Golden Torment. This one I'm going to read next because one, this spine is cracked 1,000,000 times and it's written in. Multiple people read it. Multiple people left reviews. This is Goodreads before Goodreads. It literally says on the first page, let me find it. It says Kathy 2007 read twice. Yeah. Kathy September 8th, 2004 read twice. So I got to see what Kathy was into. Now, I will be honest. I had the sexist view of these are garbage. These are smut novels. This is nothing but smutty smut. And let me tell you, if you don't stay for this whole video to figure out what was inside this little book, there were 4 sex scenes in this whole book, and each one was maybe a page or 2 long. So about, in this whole novel, less than 10 pages were sex. Now, I don't know about you, but to be declared a smut novel, it probably needs more than 10 pages of smut, but because it has this on the cover, And because women enjoy it, it's all of a sudden seen as trash novel, garbage novel. Let's be honest. A guy can watch a movie and it have a sex scene and it's seen as a cinematic masterpiece. You know, Quentin Tarantino is seen as an amazing director, and he's sucking on Selma Hayek's foot. I mean, who wouldn't? But still. And it just is, again, misogyny, sexism, whatever you want to call it, of you look at this book and you think, dirty smut, women want to read porn. But you look at a Tom Clancy novel or a Stephen King novel and you're like, no. That's a serious author. That's a serious author. Meanwhile, Penelope Neri had our grandmas and our mamas. I mean, she had them in places of mystical fantasy and political intrigue. And again, all of these elements that no wonder they were pissed at us when we were sitting there just like, mama. And they were just like, my God, I am reading. What do you want? And that was me this whole week reading this because it envelops you in the story. So much goes on. I'm not a huge smut reader. I don't gravitate towards it. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. I honestly sometimes skip it. It's just not, I don't like it on the TV. I don't like it. I'm not a prude person. I'm very sex positive. But due to some past circumstances, it makes me uncomfortable. I just don't like it. And that's okay. I'm not saying these are bad things. However, the sexual scenes in this novel, the less than 8 pages, but the few scenes there were written so beautifully and so well and just classy. Now, I'm not saying classy in the way that they didn't say what was happening, because they are graphic. They say what is happening. They say everywhere his tongue is touching, okay? There is no mounds, crevices, petals, talk. It's in there. But the way it escalates and even de-escalates is just so, you really do get wrapped up in it. And it's these are the few sex scenes that I'm just like, I can get behind this. This is enjoyable. This is not eye-rolly. This is not graphic and scary. This is not concerning. That being said, I will say these novels do not shy away from other forms of sexual relationships, if you will. There are forceful sex scenes between characters, but it doesn't romanticize it, I think a lot of Netflix shows such as Euphoria and Bridgerton make a kink out of negative sexual encounters, if you will. I'm trying to word that as best as I can. I think they make it part of the watching, if you will, and that's why I can't watch them. But these novels definitely make a stark contrast between an enjoyable sexual encounter and a not enjoyable sexual encounter. However, they do not shy away from either one. So do know that going into some of these novels, things do happen. Not all, because I haven't read them all, but I'm just saying. Once again, this video will be majorly, I can't say that word, will be mostly me telling you the story of Desert Captive, because this one was the first one I read. It's an amazing book. If you ever see this at your little flea market, buy it, because this is a story ori. And again, beautiful. But my one complaint on these novels, what is this one? Is this okay. My one complaint is this one is obviously like a Middle Eastern romance novel. And this one is with a Comanche warrior. Fanfic before fanfic. And the men in these novels are written very dark skinned. Duh. But on the covers, these are obviously white men. These are obviously very light-skinned men. And so that's kind of like, I have a few criticisms that we'll discuss, but just off the cover of the book, probably my main one is don't be afraid to give us a handsome, dark man. Tall, dark, and handsome. That's the whole point of the saying. Like, this is not... Hold on. Can you see? That is not an Arabic man. I mean, it could be. I'm not saying no, but like, that's Eric from The Little Mermaid. That's a Norwegian Swedish king. But in this novel, this character is always described as ebony skinned, dark skinned. He's called racist terminology by English people for his skin tone. I won't say what, but you know. But I guess back then, maybe for the safety of the women reading it, their husbands, let's be honest, might not be too keen on, you know, little old Betty, you know, who does like the church potluck, and she enjoys a little romance novel, and it's got some like, you know, huge black guy on it. Her husband might hurt her for reading that. Let's be honest, okay? Let's just say the quiet part out loud. So maybe for the safety of the readers, or racism, you know, you never know. From the illustrator, didn't depict these guys as dark as they are written. Because once again, this is a Comanche warrior, and he's written as a dark-haired, dark-skinned, dark-eyed, gorgeous, gorgeous man. And then on this cover, it looks like, I don't know enough celebrities, but I mean, who does that look like to you? It kind of looks like Matthew McConaughey right there, a little bit. That's a Texas boy. Oh, look, he's on the back too, right there, you know? Like, that's just Matthew McConaughey. Maybe back in the day, Matthew McConaughey would have been depicted as a Comanche warrior. I'm not putting it past the 90s.
Good to be here, Zach.
All right. Sorry, I was just reading the box office returns for your last 3 movies.
But this was written in the 80s. Anyways, I digress. Without further ado, let's get into Desert Captive. This will kind of be like Reading Rainbow, but with grandma smut.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
We open on a prologue, and it opens on 2 little kids fighting. There is a little girl named Alexandria for the place that she is born, and she is a white girl. She's from her parents are from England, and her father is an archaeologist, and so they are in Egypt for work. But she has been born and raised in Egypt. This is her home, despite being a white girl. And she is crying because her friend, Sharif, who is an older boy, I think she's like 4 or 5 at this time, and he's like 8, 9, 10. He broke her dolly. And they're fighting as kids do. Meanwhile, her mother is giving birth to her little brother, Keen. And now Keen is born, but he is very sickly baby. And the doctor is telling the Hardings, that's the parents, the English parents, he's saying that y'all need to go back to England. This baby is not going to do well in this bright Egyptian sun. His delicate little English self can't handle it. Y'all need to go back to the dark, gloomy depths of London where y'all came from if you want your son to live. And you get this vibe, it goes back and forth, but you get this vibe that Alexandria and Sharif, and she calls him Shasha because she's a baby and she can't say Sharif. They have like a brother-sister relationship because they're kids at this time, but Sharif is also very protective of her, and he has an inkling of a love for her. Now, I'm not saying a romantic love because these are children. It never says like he looks at this, 5-6-year-old with goo eyes, but he's starting to feel like this little girl is very important in my life, and I really care for her, and I don't want anything to happen to her, and I'm very upset I broke her doll. And so the Hardings then leave Egypt, and it's very sad because Alexandria is very upset. She's grown up in Egypt. She doesn't want to leave her home, And she also doesn't want to leave, all of her family as she sees them. She has a like a nursemaid type of person named Fatima. She has like an uncle character, which is Sharif's father. She has a lot of these members of her household. And I know what you're thinking. Like, of course, the white lady thinks that the help is her family. It was 1984. But it is of that. This little girl does see these people as her family, and she's very upset to leave them. And it's very sad. And then Sharif is also upset because he didn't get to apologize for breaking her dolly, but he also makes the vow that this will not be the last time that he sees dear. Many, many, many years later, Alexa and Keen's parents have died. Her father died in an archaeological dig. A pyramid or something fell on top of him. And she's kind of like, well, I mean, he died where he loved. So I guess he's like buried among all the artifacts that he loves, and it's a thunderstorm, and Alexa is freaking out because she can't find Keen. And we get this understanding that Keen is a gambler, a womanizer, a drunk. They are not rich by any means, but they are doing the best they can. They're not like poor, but much like all of us, they're doing the best they can. He's kind of gambling away all of the like shreds of savings that they have. She can't get married because despite being beautiful, she has waist-length auburn hair, creamy white skin. It's always it's always creamy white skin. Creamy, creamy, creamy. And she has these emerald slanted eyes. And they always talk about these emerald piercing green eyes that are slanted. And so despite being beautiful, she can't get a husband because she has no dowry. And Keen's just wasting it away. And she's kind of understood that she's just going to be alone forever. She's going to be a spinster and just constantly taking care of her brother. You hate to see it. Anyways, she is freaking out. It is thunderstorming, raining, very dramatic scene. Keen busts through the doors. He's drunk as a skunk. And she is like, where the hell have you been? The cops are looking for you. Again. And he calls her sister dear a lot. And I hate that trope of calling brother, sister, cousin like brother, sister, cousin. I literally stopped watching The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina because her and Salem kept referring to each other as cousin. I hate it. Never in my life have I ever referred to my brother as brother. Anyways. And he's just like, sister dear, what now? And she's like, you really done it this time because you forced yourself upon the wife of a very rich man and he is sending the cops after you. And Keen's drunk and he's just kind of like, she was a tot and she wanted it and it wasn't forced and you never have my side. And the way he's talking to Alexa, you get this feeling he's not a nice guy. Keen is not a nice guy. Again, he's gambling away their money. He's drinking himself all the time into like these like drunk stupors where he's just awful and abusive. And although you don't know if he forced himself upon this woman, you get the feeling he's not like above it. The way he talks about her, you're just kind of like, And Alexa's feeling that way too. She's kind of like, I don't really know if you did or didn't. And he's just, you don't believe me, sister dear. And she's just kind of like, look, you have not been a nice person. You have gambled our money away. You forced yourself upon women before. I'm not putting it past you. And she's like, the cops are coming. They are after you. You will go to prison for assault. And then he kind of sobers up and he's just like, I don't want to do that. I'm too pretty for prison. In this book, they're not incestuous, but they talk about each other being attractive a lot. He's always like, my sister's gorgeous and beautiful, but she's a witch. And it's like, okay. And then she's always like, my handsome little brother who just can't get his life together, but he's so handsome. And this, the sun's shining off his blonde hair and he's so handsome. And you're just like, girl, you okay? Do you need a husband? And so she's like, okay, the cops are coming. He's like, oh my God, I am too pretty for prison. I can't go. I'm going to go join the army, as one does to escape the law. And she's like, that seems like a real drastic move. Are you like, what? And he just like ups and leaves. He goes and disappears. And she's very distraught and worried about him. But at the same time, she's kind of like, well, he's, I think at this time, like 18 or something. So he's about to move out of her guardianship and be seen as an adult. And she's kind of like, well, there's nothing I can do. In a few months, he's going to be out of my guardianship. I can't do anything. And so it's a very dramatic scene of it's thunderstorming and raining, and he's just running away all drunk and just like, I'll get you, sister dear. And she's just like, no, don't. And scene. And so then we skip to, it says, over 18 months would pass without a word from him. Almost 2 years would come and go before she learned the terrible error in judgment that she made that night. Everything Keene told her had been the truth. It comes out that there was a big trial, and it turns out that that particular woman was consensual with Keene because she got caught with another guy and her husband like killed her. And so Alexa is, of course, just like, I've got to go apologize. She doesn't know where he is. She's never heard from him. And she's just like, I've got to go find him and apologize. And you're kind of like, cut your losses, girl. He was a piece of garbage. Consider this a blessing. Even if he didn't force himself upon her, he was still a piece of crap. And he also, like, she's starting to uncover all the debt that he owes to a lot of gang members and stuff are coming up to her. Like, your brother friggin' owes us, and if you don't pay, we'll take you. And she's just like, fuck. Anyway, so I got to go find him. This is his mess. I got to apologize. He's got to come home and sort all this out because, like, I am stressed. Okay, I'm stressed. So she sells everything she owns. She fires the staff, gets rid of them. She sells like literally the last string of pearls her mother left her and uses that money to go find Keene. She's going to different places, post to post. It's very dangerous because she's a young woman by herself. And I also love this story because she's like in her late 20s, early 30s. I think she's actually 31, which is a breath of fresh air because I'm so tired of reading about 17-year-olds. She's a woman in her 30s, very gorgeous, traveling through the Middle East because that is kind of where her clues have led her to where he is stationed. So she's going to like army camp to army camp in the Middle East. Like it's a lot of danger. It's a lot of danger. And you're just like, it's not worth it. It's not, ooh, bad things might happen. Ooh. She finally finds one that he might be at. Everybody's very nice to her, but the corporal obviously understands the danger that she is in at this camp. And he's like, do not leave this room. Stay. You're very pretty. Don't leave. These men have not seen a woman in 8 months. Please don't leave. And so she's kind of sitting there and Keene comes in.
He was the bravest and most handsome in all the land.
He tears her a new one. He is blistered. He is sun-beaten. He is dusty, dry. He aged like Obi-Wan Kenobi when he went to the desert planet. But he's still handsome. She still regards that. And I'm just like, why is that a detail? Anyways, he chews her out. He's just like, I've been out here burning my ass up because you didn't believe me. And he really lays it on thick. You know, you're kind of like, okay, she does, I guess, you do deserve an apology. But at the same time, like, ease up, man. You pretty much gambled their whole fortune away and treated her like crap and many other things. And she's trying to apologize to him, but then she's also kind of fighting with him because she's just like, okay, whoa. They're fighting. He's screaming. He's losing it on her. He is berating her into a corner and she is like trying not to cry because remember, she's the older sister. But he's a huge grown man now, and it's still very scary to get yelled at by a grown man despite being older than them. And then the corporal's just like, Keene, whoa, ease up, okay? Like, you're kind of ruining it because she's going to cry, and then she's not going to sleep with any of these guys. And he's trying to get with the sister, and she's a lady, be nice to her. Stop ruining it for us. And Alexa is, of course, just like, no, I deserve it. I didn't stand up for him. I didn't do this. And you're just... She does that a lot in this book at the first half before she finds herself. She's struggling. She struggles really hard with what English society expects of a woman in the 1800s and how she truly feels. And so her journey through her character is a lot of liberating herself. And so she's trying to be the guardian, be the bigger person, be a lady. She's like, no, it's my fault. He can berate me into a corner and make me cry. I deserve it. And Keen's just like, yeah, you little witch, you attractive, beautiful little witch. And again, what is the deal with these friggin' siblings? And so the corporal's like, look, she's got to go home. She cannot be in the desert. This is very dangerous on all sides. And he's like, we got to take her back to the other station to like get her back to England. And Keen's like, fine, whatever. Yeah. And she's super upset because she's kind of, well, I sold my house to get here, so I don't really know where I'm going to go when I get to England, but I guess I'll figure it out. Now, some backstory does happen during these chapters. So one is Alexa is always having wet dreams of an Arabic man in a dark indigo robe ravishing her. And she struggles really with it because she very much enjoys these dreams. However, when she wakes up, she feels like a harlot for allowing such impure thoughts. Meanwhile, we kind of check on Keen while he's in the army. And him and his group run up on a party of a few older men and a group of women and a young bride. And she is on her way to her fiance. They do not escort her. They are not nice. They stop them and interrogate them because they are racist, let's be honest. And they think they own the desert to these natives who are traveling. Not native, but like native to the desert. And so they're just being awful English officers. But three of them out of the five are kind of just like, all right, guys, like chill, like let them go. They're obviously going to a wedding party. There's three old men and some old ladies and a young girl. What could happen? And Keen and this other guy are like, nope. This is our desert. We decide what goes. And so they just shoot all the men. They just shoot them all. And the women, of course, are terrified. And so they tied together the older women and the Keen and this other bad guy who murdered the group. You know, you can kind of tell what happens. And it's very awful to read. But it's just true. It's true. And I like that these books were, later on we'll kind of discuss, but like these books were more historically accurate as to what white colonizers were doing than history books back then. These books did not shy away from what a lot of people's ancestors, grandpas, were up to. And then we cut to Sharif. And now Sharif is a prince and he is with his traveling group and he has his best friend named Kudar. And Kudar, they are looking for his fiance's bridal party. And so they run upon the bridal party that is now murdered and severely hurt. And they question and ask, who did this to you? What happened? Oh my God. And they say it was the English. It was this. It was that. They describe Keen. They describe this. They describe that. Now Sharif and Kudar are out for vengeance to find this English party. Jump back to Keen and his party are now traveling with Alexa to take her back to port or wherever. Of course, they run into Sharif and Kudar and their whole team. Chaos ensues. Kudar is hell-bent on killing Keen because he knows he's the one who hurt his fiance, of which he does not take his fiance now. And so now the fiance's obviously very upset because now she cannot get married. And you're just kind of like, okay. Not a lot of awesome men in this book, you know, on both sides. You're just kind of like, But there, anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Chaos ensues. They capture the Englishman, but Sharif notices that white lady with the green eyes. And he's like, do I know you from somewhere? And she's like, he looks like the guy in my dreams, but that's crazy. I'm terrified, rightfully so. Not the time to like fall in love, you know, when your whole encampment is like fighting. And so they tie the English up and Sharif grabs her, throws her over his shoulder, rides away. They make camp. They start torturing the Englishman. And meanwhile, Muriel who is the woman that Keen forced himself upon, who now is not able to get married to Kudar. Muriel is very nice to Alexa. They form a friendship despite speaking a common language. It's very sweet, actually. And so they kind of help each other out with things, and they form like a little friendship sisterhood in this camp of men that are very scary. And there's a lot of men that have hurt them, and they're just trying to like hold hands and just be like sisters forever. And so her and Sharif kind of talk, but they don't speak, again, the same language. He knows English, but he doesn't switch to it because he's just kind of fucking with her at this point. He grabs her to kind of protect her because a lot of the other men in his camp are obviously very pissed and very angry, and they see a young woman, they're going to get back at Keen that way, if you catch my drift. And so he's kind of like, ooh, I'll just grab her and be like, I got her, boys, don't worry. And so he throws her in his tent, and he's just like, look, he doesn't say in English, but he kind of just mimes like, don't move, stay, I'll deal with you later. Don't move. She can hear her, the English guys like being tortured. They are spread eagling them, trying to get them to talk, trying to get them to say who hurt Muriel. And they do. They were like, it's Keen. And Keen's just like, shit. Okay. And so he's like, Alexa, he's tied up. And he's like, Alexa, sister, please let me go. Please, I will forgive you. Please let me go. And she's just kind of like, okay, this is a very scary situation. That hot prince guy is hot, but don't really like where that's headed. I will let you and your comrades out and we'll all get away. And he's like, ooh, sounds like a smashing good idea, sister. And we all know he don't. She runs out, causes a distraction, which is very brave for a woman to go run through a encampment of men who are torturing other men. And Keen just unties himself and gets a camel and goes off. He saves no one, not his sister, not his comrades. He rolls out. And keep in mind, he's the main one that those guys want. Kudar is like, oh my God, go catch that guy. Because now we know it was him. And meanwhile, Sharif is like trying to catch Alexa. And he's like, girl, if you don't sit your ass down. My God, do you want to get hurt? Like, I'm trying to protect you. Sit down, crazy ass. And she's just screaming the whole time. And she's freaking out. And you're just kind of like, Alexa, breathe. My God. Okay, and so Sharif and his encampment are chasing after the Englishmen, but they kind of split up, I think, at this point. Sorry, I read it a week ago. I think they split up at this point where Kudar goes after Keen and the Englishmen, and then Sharif is like, I got to take these women, like Muriel and everybody, like, we got to go home because it's like too much to drag them through this. Like, this is torture. And he's like, also, this like English lady keeps causing a fucking problem. So let's take the women home and I'll come back and get with you. Meanwhile, Kudar is making the threat to Sharif. And he's just like, if I can't get that brother, I'm going to mess up that sister. Because he has this, and it's the law in this story, of the women related to a man can be punished for the crimes of the man. And Sharif's just like, no, she didn't. She's super nice to Muriel. Like, she cleaned up Muriel's bruises and blood and cared for her. Obviously, she's not like her brother. And Kudar's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna hurt her the way Keen hurt my fiance in public as a form of punishment. And you're just kind of like, ooh. And so Alexa's kind of understanding this at this point. And she's just, I'm alone in the desert, surrounded by people. I don't know what they're saying, really. There's one guy who wants to really hurt me. And then there's this other guy that keeps calling me pet names and telling me that I'm from his dreams and, protecting me. She's like, I guess I'll lean towards that guy. But she's also like super racist towards him at this point. She calls him like dark-eyed devil and all of these things. And she's just awful. And he's just, okay, girl. And he just kind of laughs it off at this point because he's like, once she realizes that I am Shasha from her childhood and that we're destined to be together, she's going to be so surprised. And now the reason that Sharif is super, super into Alexa at this point is because he had an astrologer one time make a prediction for him. And it says, and this is a theme throughout the book, is this prediction. It is written in the stars that the desert hawk and his young will once again rule the mountains of Al Azadel. I see great success in your houses, a success that will last for 2 decades. He just kind of like makes like a really nice prediction. And Sharif's just like, awesome, that sounds great. But there's always a but.
Yes, a hideous rule.
A word of caution to this tale.
Excuse me?
Peace will prevail, the astrologer had continued, but will last only until the sons of your enemies are grown into manhood. These enemies are the ones who are tied by thee by the bonds of blood. He's saying it will bring discord, but it is also then that the promise of love will be fulfilled for you and the maid, young master, for it is time of strife that the paths of your 2 destinies will cross once more. Your beloved will return to thee from the west. Yet in this time of your greatest joy will also come the threat of war and death and a loss of all you hold dear. Brothers suckled at the same breast will in a single breath become deadly enemies, and this woman will be the cause. Deceit and deception will flourish like wild roses in the garden of trust, and jealousy will poison their sharpest thorns and wither their brightest blossoms. It will be a time when a gift of beauty might harbor death in its perfumed bosom. So beware, young master. Beware, for love and hatred will ride the same horse. And so Sharif's kind of like, okay. He's like, it's a lot about flowers, a lot about jealousy. And you're kind of like, at this point in the story, you're kind of just like, Kudar and him are raised like brothers. They were suckled at the same breast. So you're just kind of like, okay, so Kudar's and him are obviously going to be fighting over Alexa throughout this book. But to what extent? Let's go on. So they make camp. Muriel brings Alexa rose water, which was a very important move because she's like, I know you English like to bathe with like water as opposed to with sand and stuff. She's like, so here's a little treat. And Alexa's like, thank goodness. And so Alexa is, of course, bathing with her little rose water. Of course, Sharif sees this. And this is where we get the first sex scene. And I won't go into detail, obviously, but the rising theme with Sharif and Alexa's sexual themes is the first few encounters. She really struggles with what she wants because, again, her upbringing tells her not to want this. That if you, and we see this with a lot of societies today, is if you desire sex as a woman, you are seen as a harlot, as a tramp. Women, good women, upstanding women do not desire such lewd things, and they do not enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, you are again seen as a harlot. He does this move and it cracks me up. So she's standing there naked and she has like pillows over herself. And he's just laying there eating like figs and dates. And he tells her specifically, he says, I will not force your love. You will come to me willingly. It's in the stars that we are supposed to be together. I know you love me deep down and I don't have to force you. And he does that whole thing of like, I have tamed the wildest stallions. I can tame you. And she's just, no. And she keeps struggling with like how hot he looks and how attracted she is to him. And they have kissed before, but only like, cause he like just kind of kissed her and she was like, And she's kind of like, that kiss was pretty nice, but no, I'm not supposed to want it, especially from this, you know, Arabic guy. And he throws a date across the tent and she turns because she hears a thump. She doesn't see him throw it. She hears a thump and she's like, what the hell? And she hears another thump and then she looks up and he just tackles her in a fun way. Don't worry. And he starts lavishly kissing her and caressing her and touching her. And she is obviously very into it because he, again, is very communicating. He's really communicating with her of making sure it's consensual, if you will. He makes sure that it is consensual 100%. And so lovemaking consumes. When she wakes up, she completely switches gears. She was very into it, very consensual that night. It was very beautiful. She really enjoyed herself. And then in the morning, she calls him this word and kind of freaks out on him. And she's like, "You're a brute. You forced yourself upon me." And he's like, "Whoa, whoa, no ma'am. No ma'am." Rightfully so. You know, he's just like, "You did not just call me that after what we just did last night." And he's not gaslighting her. He's not gaslighting her like Keen was, like when he was talking about it, where he was just like, "You loved every bit of it." He's actually like super hurt. He's just like, "I thought we had a special thing last night. Like we said beautiful things to each other. What are you talking about?" And she's again struggling mentally and verbally with what she's, you know, in her heart, she's just like, "It was super nice, but like, I'm not supposed to like this." And on the outside, she's just like, "Nope, nope. You are a brute. You are awful. I hate you. You forced yourself upon me. You took my virginity. I'm ruined. You're a monster." And he's just like, obviously super tired of her shit by now. He's so tired of this English woman that he is destined in the stars to be with. And he's just, this is tough. This is getting really tough, guys. He's like, "I am not a like, do not call me that." And he stands up to himself. He's just like, okay, that's how, okay. Is that, you want to talk a big game? Okay. And then she's kind of like backtracking, kind of crawfishing out of it. She's, "Well, now what? What are you going to do to me?" And he's like, "Nothing. We're going home. We're packing up, going home." And so she's obviously super nervous because she's just kind of, "Oh, if I make him mad, is he going to give me to Kadar? Like, what's going to happen?" And she's obviously, again, constantly, you're so frustrated with her at this point because she's just constantly back and forth with like, "Oh, he's so handsome and I love him so much. Like, I really like him and he's so hot and we had such a good time and I have nothing in England, but like, I'm not supposed to. Like, oh my God, my dad would be so disappointed in me." And you're just like rolling your eyes at this point with Alexa. And you're on, like, you're definitely like Team Sharif because you're just like, you just feel his frustration. So we jump back to King. Good old King. He's on a really tired camel trolloping through the desert. And he comes across none other than Kudar and his camp. And Keen is a fucking psychopath. And he's like, "I know their custom is they have to treat me like a king for 3 days and 3 nights before they kill me. It's some custom. Is it true? I don't know." And so he just waltzes into their camp and he's just like, he says whatever in Arabic or whatever their language is. I won't just generalize and say Arabic, but you know, whatever their language is. And they do have to treat him. So for 3 days and 3 nights, Kudar is just sitting there, picturing Keen's death as he is feeding him, giving him milk, giving him yummy. The food descriptions in this book are so good. Like, the sexual scenes are one thing, but then describing the food and the clothes, it's like an ASMR for your eyes. You're just like, "Oh, that sounds tantalizing." And it's just it's a book for the senses. And so on the 3rd night, Keen's like, "They're going to kill me. I'm going to do what Keen does best and I'm going to skedaddle out of here." And so he takes a fresh damn camel, steals a bunch of food and clothes so he doesn't look like a white guy walking around, and he rolls out.
She went out getting a few gifts for the family. Let's see, for Mom. Yeah, Uncle Carl. Sure. Let's see. Maybe, this would be perfect for Aunt Betty's kitchen. I don't know what this is, but it's perfect for Dad. Yeah. And I'd better not forget the gang at the barbershop. It's all duty-free, isn't it?
Now, why he wasn't surrounded by guards escapes me. He has like a few guards, I think, but he kind of outsmarts them. in like a stupid Looney Tunes way, I think. And of course, Kudar could not be more pissed. He is like, when I get this English boy. And now we enter part 2 of the book. And this is going to take place in the kingdom. And I want to give the author credit in the sense that she heavily researched the regions of this area. And it's not some like racist, you know, Arabian Nights fantasy. They even comment on that. Like Alexa's just like, oh, this is like Arabian Nights. Like, this is nice. And they're just like, girl, there's like 20 tribes of people here. Shut the fuck up. Old dumb white lady. But the author takes the time to discuss all the different tribes, all the different tongues they speak, all the different hierarchies, kind of, you know, because there is racism amongst them, and just kind of like all the laws and stuff. Everybody is Muslim and they follow Islam in this novel. And surprisingly, and I'd say surprisingly, but for 1984, written by a white lady, very, very lovely view of Muslim Islamic people. Like, she doesn't make fun of their beliefs. She describes the customs and the culture very accurately. We enter the kingdom. Alexa's kind of like, this is nice. She's like, oh, it's a cute little castle. Oh, it's a cute little mountain. Oh, look at this bazaar. Like, this is really nice. No, I'm supposed to hate this. I'm supposed to hate this. Like, she is just struggling because she's at home finally where she was born. And so she's just kind of like vibing with it. And she's like, oh, I shouldn't be vibing with it. Oh my goodness. So I forgot. I'm so sorry. Can we take a brief second here and talk about the sandstorm scene? I don't know. This was somewhere where they were traveling and I completely forgot. But Sharif has Alexa on his horse while they're traveling to this kingdom. And there's a sandstorm, as one does in the desert. And so he throws his cloak around him and her on the horse. And you kind of have to wonder, like, the horse is like the whole time because all the sand's just whipping in his face. Maybe the horse has like a little veil. And how do I describe this on YouTube in the nicest way? In the most PG friendly way, excuse me. He toys with her on top of a horse in a sandstorm in their cloaks, if you will. He's like kissing her neck and she's like, no, stop. And he's, you know, kissing her collarbone and she's like, no. And he's kissing other parts and his hands are roaming around up things and around things, and it kind of describes it. And they're not necessarily like fully consummating their relationship, but they're having a good time. And I'm just kind of like, I mean, talk about a first date, getting fingered on a horse in a sandstorm. So that's a fun little scene that stuck with me because I was like, not only is that like super talented to stay on a horse, but a very unique experience. I'll give it that. Again, very creative writing, you know. Sure, you can talk about a dragon guy or a kraken or whatever getting with you, but do you get fingered on a horse in a sandstorm by an Arabian prince? I don't think so. Anyways, let's carry on with the stories. So she's in the kingdom. Sharif is still obviously very angry at her. He's just like giving her the silent treatment and she really doesn't like it. She's kind of being like a child and he's treating her like one because he's just like, no, you called me a literal rapist. And she's like, well, like, talk to me. And he just kind of, you know, puts her in a room, a very nice room, like for royalty, because remember, he's a prince. And she kind of hangs out with like the women of the family, like the little harem, the king's harem. And they're kind of telling her, and she befriends this one girl named Raisha. And a lot of the other women do not like Raisha. I hope I'm saying her name right. Is that how you say it? Is this an AA Ron kind of moment?
Balake. Where is Balake at? There's no Balake here today. Yes, sir.
My name's Blake.
Anyways, let's call her Raisha. But they're hitting it off. She's having a good time, you know. Like, Raisha's just like, oh, the prince brought you? Okay, like, I know, me and Prince are pretty close. And Alexa's just like, oh, you're fun. And let's wash each other and braid each other's hair. For a second, I thought it was going to go lesbian. I'm totally, they were showering and in the tub. And I was kind of like, is this that kind of book? It's not, but it leads to it because you're kind of like, okay, grandmas. I know some of y'all were probably feeling that. And then we cut to this blacksmith who is making wedding rings. Yes. And it turns out that is Raisha's father. Raisha's father is the blacksmith for the royal family. And he's making wedding rings. And then it cuts kind of back and forth between Sharif and his dad. And Sharif's like, there's only one way to protect Alexa. Protect Alexa from Kudar. And then he's kind of telling the king, like, oh, I found this lady and like she's wonderful and I kind of want to be with her. And you're just like, oh, is Sharif going to marry Alexa to protect her from Kudar so he doesn't hurt her?
Armed and dangerous. I'd like to see one of those 40 thieves get within an inch of your wedding.
Allow me to introduce...
the King of Thieves.
Ah!
All units, we have a code red.
Code red! Code red!
Code red! Code red! Code red! Code red! Code red! Code red! Come on, boys, follow me! Cavalry, forward! Code red! Code red! Geronimo! Arapaho! Navajo! Pocahontas! Code red! Code red! Code red!
Do not attempt to move or we'll be shooting ourselves.
Cut to again, the wedding rings are being made. Raisha is kind of like, who are those for? And her dad's like, I can't really tell, but you're my daughter. It's for Sharif and that white lady he found. And Raisha's like, they're getting married? And then it turns out Raisha was Sharif's like favorite concubine. But she can't have babies, so he never married her. And Raisha is pissed because she is very jealous and she's just like, no. And so she's like, she's a belly dancer or a dancer. She's like, all right, I'm going to dance at his wedding. And her dad's just kind of like, could you not embarrass the family? Could you not? Like, this is literally my biggest client. Could you not? And she's like, I'm just going to say goodbye to him in the only way I know how. And that's, stripping at his reception. This whole time, it's taken like a few weeks. And Alexa, in the meantime, has been learning the languages. She has also been taking classes on Islam. And she is in the process of converting, which again, super progressive. I just thought that was really impressive for a time written in 1984, that it had the heroine, if you will, this white woman from England willingly converting to Islam and wanting to be a part of this community and not just sitting there huffing and puffing in her suite, just being like, where are my crumpets? Like she's actively loving the food. She wears the outfits. She's having a really good time with these girls, actually. There's a really cute scene where they are dressing her up and they're teaching her like their dances of their tribes and where they come from. And they're just like, well, in England, how do people dress and dance there? And she kind of stuns them with like, she says, oh, well, in England, husbands only have one wife. And the women are astounded by that. They're just like, but that's so much work to give to one woman. And they're just like, well, how many camels do these guys have? And she's like, well, we don't have camels in England. And they're like, oh, that's probably why you can only afford one wife. You don't have enough camels. And it's kind of a funny moment. But they get to dress up. She brings out her corsets. She brings out her like little buckled shoes, her petticoats and stuff. And like these women, these Middle Eastern women of different tribes are all trying them on. She's trying to teach them to waltz and do all these dances. And they're just having a really cute like sisterhood of different cultures. And it's really sweet. And I really enjoyed it because, again, it just showed like Alexa is openly with arms wide open. With arms wide open. You know, taking in this country, and it's super cute. So she has a big conversion ceremony coming up where she is going to officially convert to Islam. And so everybody's freaking out. Everybody's like bustling there's like this old lady, if you will, that just hangs around her and helps her out, called Fatima. If you don't remember her. And so Fatima's just bustling around her, being a mother figure, just like, oh my God, is your hair right? Let's put you in your best clothes. Do you have this? Do you have that? There's chefs like rushing with food. There's dancers running around, musicians. Everybody's freaking out. And she's kind of like, this is like a big deal for like converting to Islam. Like, do y'all do this for everybody? And she's like, oh, it's just because you're a white lady. And it's like crazy. Ooh. And so Alexa's like, okay. And so Alexa goes and she walks down this aisle and signs this document. And Sharif's right there. And he's like, I'm just being supportive, girl. Go on and sign that. And she looks at the wedding officiator person, whoever you want to call it. And he's veiled and like covered, but she notices he has blue eyes. And you're kind of like, well, and she notices. She's just like, well, that's weird. You don't see a lot of blue-eyed people around here, but whatever. This girl is naive as hell. And she's just kind of, it's a lot of stuff for converting to Islam. And she signs it. And Sharif's like, I'm just going to give you just a little kiss. Just, you know, you did it. And everybody's cheering. And she's just like, wow, everybody's super supportive of me converting. This is great. And he's just like, I know, right? Let's go sit over here. And so they go sit, and everybody's like, she doesn't speak enough of this language at the time, so she's kind of getting lost. But people are saying, like, congratulations to Sharif, and y'all will make beautiful, and I can't wait for babies. And it is slowly ticking in her head. For a girl that's, like, learning languages and learning a religion, she's really slow on, like, just social cues. What is happening? And she kind of, like, says something, like, kind of rude to him, and he's like, don't talk to your husband like that. And she's like, what? And he's like, don't make a big deal. Don't make a big deal. Shut up. My dad's looking. My dad's looking. Because if his dad finds out, if the king finds out that Sharif married Alexa to spare her from Kudar, who the king also raised like a son, he's going to be like, no, you can't do that. Don't do that. Because technically Kudar has first dibs. We'll get to that later because that'll be very important. And so Sharif's just like, we should go to our bedroom and get out of here. And Alexis is like, no. She's like mid-sentence. She's like, what the And he's just like, let's go, honey. Bye. Bye, everybody. But before that, Raisha shows up. She's wearing her sexy little gear. And she starts doing her little dance as her gift to the couple. And the way the dance is written is so well. Like, it was the most beautiful dance scene I've ever seen written ever. And I've read a lot of books. And I was like, I can literally see what is happening, what she's wearing. Like, it just looked beautiful. And then she looks up like she's panting and she's like, ta-da! Sharif's not there. They're gone. They went to the honeymoon suite. And she's just like, are you kidding me? And so her jealousy only festers more. And remember the astrologer's prediction that jealousy will be riding the same horse as love. But how far will Raisha go? How far will she go? Let us go on. Let's take a commercial break right here and talk about, you can subscribe. I wonder if I mailed this in, if they would still honor it. Does Zebra Publishing still exist? Get a free Zebra historical romance, a $3.95 value. This is from New Jersey, a fixed stamp here. I'm going to mail this in. Look, a free book certificate. Accept your free gift and experience more of the passion and adventure you like in a historical romance. Because our readers tell us these books sell out very fast in stores, Zebra has made arrangements for you to receive at home the 4 newest titles published each month. You'll never miss a title, and home delivery is so convenient. You get 4 a month? Do you keep all 4? Oh, no. Each month, they will send you 4 new titles. We ship these books, yada, yada, yada. You may preview them for free for 10 days. If you like them as much as we think you will, you'll pay just $3.50 each. And you also get free home delivery. Oh, okay. Well, that's nice. Wouldn't that be a nice thing? Like, you get 4 books a month, and then you, like, preview them, and you send back the ones you don't want? That's a nice thing. I'm going to mail this in. I'll let y'all know what happens. Ooh, that one looks fun. Bittersweet Fantasy. That one looks real pretty. Okay. So, obviously, romance ensues. In the honeymoon suite, I won't spoil it for you. It's actually really, again, it's a beautiful sex scene. Very consensual, very safe. She apologizes, and they make up well. He is so sweet to her and gives her little pet names. And it's just so gentle and caring. You're just like, oh. Now, she wakes up the next morning, and she's not like super awful like she was that first time, but she's still obviously struggling with a lot. She just got married in a day and had the best sex of her life. And her brother's still missing. And there's a guy that wants her dead. And she's just kind of, it's a lot. It's a lot for like her to just take in, you know, in a weekend. And she's actually pretty sweet. She's kind of toying with them now. They're kind of like teasing each other because he's like, well, I'm Prince and you do what I want. And she's like, well, what about what I want? And he's just like, oh, girl, we about to go for round 2. And she's kind of toying with him. She's like, no, I don't love you. And he's just like, girl, that's not what you were saying last night. And meanwhile, they're in like this like private bath and it's like super romantic. I kind of think of Bob and Linda in their little bath. If you don't take a bath with your partner, you're missing out because that's kind of like the best conversations. Not just sexual stuff, but just like super nice to sit there and just like soak and talk about things. Meanwhile, there's an attack upon the city. Awesome. And so Sharif's just like, and the enemy's name is Tabor. Tabor is this mysterious figure, bad guy. He's wanting to take over the kingdom. That's all you really know. There's more political crap, but like, I'm telling you the brief here. This video is going on probably very long. Tabor is attacking and he's just like, damn it. And so he's like, honey, I gotta go fight a war real quick, a little few battles, be back before dinner. And she's like, okay. And she's kind of like naive to it all. And so she's, well, he'll come back. He's Sharif. He's the Desert Hawk. He's like this hero in these parts. Like, he's not gonna die. Is he? And days go by and she hasn't heard from him. And she's starting to kind of freak out a little bit. We cut to little old Raisha. And now the attack is upon the city. Her mama is freaking out. And she sees 2 of the attacker guys, the henchmen, if you will. And Raisha's like, come here. And the henchmen are like, what the hell you want? And she's like, I've got information for you. If you go get that wife of the prince's, he'll fold like a deck of cards. A house of cards. Yes.
We can hit that bullseye. The rest of the dominoes will fall like a house of cards. Checkmate.
He will fold quickly. And they're just kind of like, how can we trust you? And she's like, because I was his lover and you can just trust that. Just trust that I used to sleep with him, so I know everything. And her mom's just like, shut the fuck up. And Raisha's like, And so Raisha then begins a relationship with like the enemy army and becomes a double agent, if you will. And she's starting to sell secrets to Tabor and his men. And she's housing them, feeding them, kind of being a cunt. And she tells him important information, I forget how, but they're able to sneak up on Sharif, and they don't kill him, but they really, really hurt him. They like crack a bunch of ribs and stuff and crack his head open. And a lot of his men die in the battle, but he's saved and he's taken back to the kingdom. And Alexa is, of course, in the meantime, freaking out. She's starting to realize she might actually like the guy because she's starting to freak out. And Fatima the whole time is just like, I thought you didn't like him. I thought you didn't want to be married. I thought he was a brute. Wouldn't it be better if he died? Because then you would be free. And Alexa's just like, So he comes home. He's cracked ribs, cracked head, whatever. And they're just like, hey, like Alexa gets all dressed up. And Fatima's like, why are you dressing up if you don't care about him? She's like, shut the fuck up, Fatima. I'm just going to go see my husband. Shut up. And Sharif's just like, no, don't let her in. Don't let her in. And Fatima goes and she's like, why aren't you letting Alexa see you? Like she's your wife. And he's like, because she doesn't understand that she loves me. And I'm going to make her understand that. So I'm going to make her worry and make her fret and make her realize how much she cares. And Fatima's kind of, that's really rude and kind of fucked up. And he's like, it'll work. And it does. It does work because each day Alexa becomes absolutely furious. And then she finds out that Raisha was Sharif's lover before her. And so she's, oh shit, I forgot, that happens here. Like men take multiple women. And so she's like, So she climbs the cliff to his like balcony. She's climbing a desert mountain cliff to his balcony to go like see him. She's so pissed and in love, but she doesn't realize it yet. And so Sharif sees her climbing up and he's just, I knew it. I knew she'd come. I knew she'd come. And so he's like, I'm going to play a game on her and pretend that I'm wooing some other woman. This is the time where you're like, okay, they both are perfect for each other because they're both absolutely ridiculous at times with the way they handle their relationship. They kind of deserve each other at this point because they're both acting absolutely insane. She gets up there. She's all cut up and bruised. She gets up there. She hears him reciting poetry. And she's like, oh, no. And she goes to get in there. She falls backwards over the balcony, down the cliff, rolls into the garden at Fatima's feet. And Fatima's sitting there eating a pomegranate, just like, how'd it go? And Alexa's like, shut the fuck up. I'm leaving. I'm done. He was reciting poetry to some other girl. I'm out.
I'm so sick of it. Shove it up your ass, Margaret. I'm resigning, everyone. I'm out of here. That's it. I'm gone. There's my letter of resignation, and there's some flowers for my dead dog. Why don't you stick those up your fat ass? Fuck off, everyone. I'm gone.
And Fatima's like, girl, calm down. He's probably playing, like, y'all both need to grow up. And Alexa's like, no, I'm done. If he wants to be with Raisha, let him be with her. I'm done. I'm out. And so she packs up a little bag and she sneaks out of the kingdom. And she gets a camel and all that stuff. And she refers to the Odyssey, and she tries to sneak out of the kingdom's gates through a sheep herd. She's like, oh, I'll do like in the Odyssey and how they defeated the Cyclops. And I'll just like go under a sheep herd and like waddle with them out the gates. And it works for a little bit until another sheep herd shows up and it just becomes like a chaos of sheep. And she gets overthrown. And she's like getting her ass kicked by sheep. And then this one big ram shows up and hits her in the butt. And he hits her up. And then people are like, who's that? And so they go down there and they fish her out. She's covered in sheep poop and bruised and bloody. And the prison guard is just like threatening her and being a dick. And she's just kind of doing that whole, well, my husband, the prince, is way better than you. And he will be very mad when he finds out that you got me because that's my husband. And Sharif shows up behind her and he's just like, oh, so your husband's this important figure now all of a sudden. And she's of course just why are you here? And he's like, girl, I know everything. I know every move you make. Like, of course I was going to know you were going to leave. Like, Fatima rushed and came and was like, you better go get her. She took a camel. And he's like, I just didn't know you were going to like crawl through sheep to get out. And he does this reverse psychology thing of he's like, you think I'm a brute? I'm going to show you a brute. And he bends her over his knee, lifts up her dress and spanks her. And you're kind of like, okay, go on. And he spanks her. And he does that whole line to men that I hate of a good wife is like a rug. You have to beat it every once in a while to get it to like whatever. Stupid. And you're like, ew, Sharif moment, but not really. Kind of, sort of. I don't know. You got to take it with a grain of salt. He's just trying to show out in front of these guys. And he is like, let's go home. We're going home. And she's fine. And she holds her hand up to get on the horse. And he's like, no, walk. He makes her walk behind that horse covered in sheep shit and beaten up all the way back home. And they get home. She cleans up and she's terrified. Not like scared for her life, but he's kind of told her throughout the day, like, I'm going to treat you like, you know, you want to be treated. You want to be hurt? You want to be treated like a slave? I got you. And she's kind of nervous. And this is when her and Raisha kind of have like their moment. Because like Raisha's back in the castle because no one knows that she sold Sharif and them out yet. And they have this exchange that I had to mark because I was kind of like, okay, Alexa. Oh, how I pity you the long night to come, Alexa. For you will be naked, helpless in his power, and he will be able to do any manner of terrible things to thee. May Allah protect you, my poor dear lady. Alexa's like, okay. Why, thank you for your concern, Raisha, my dear, but there's really no need for it, you know. I'm certain I'll survive Sharif's wrath somehow. Whatever distasteful turn his anger might take, lusty or otherwise. Perhaps it will help if I think of you, alone, husbandless, and ailing in your little sickbed in order to take my mind off my own predicament.
Get my gist? Do you understand?
And she really takes another dig at her, and Alexa tells Raisha, you really just don't know how fortunate you were, my dear, to be only Sharif's like companion rather than his bride, with all the unpleasant little duties that entails in his bed. Then, of course, one last dig is, you know, well, we must not keep our Lord waiting. Oh, and a very good night to you, Raisha. I do hope you're feeling recovered by morning. I'm sure I'll be utterly exhausted if I know my lusty Lord and his idea of punishment. Getting her groove. I won't say back because she never had it, but she's kind of getting her groove and like how to handle things here. And she's just like, no, I'm going to tell Raisha what's up. And Raisha's just like, she is taken to Sharif's room for her punishment. And it is punishment indeed. It is where we take a little BDSM turn in the novel that I was kind of like, wow. Very tantalizing. Very written well. But also like super nice to know that women back, not in the 1800s, but women back then reading this were like, you know, allowing themselves to have those thoughts, God forbid. And so they have a good time. She goes back to her harem. Raisha is super, uber duper pissed at this point. And she brings up the fact that Sharif has a harem. And she's just like, you don't think I'm the only one, right? You don't think he learned all of that just from me and you, huh? And she's like, no, over here, men have harems. And even if he doesn't have any right now, which he does, you will not be the only one. And so Alexa is obviously didn't think about that. And she's conflicted with that as a woman raised in England and not accustomed to that kind of relationship. And she's not necessarily like pissed at Sharif, but she's starting to have like these doubts that once again, you're just like, just talk to him, girl. And he tries. He's just like, what's wrong, hun? And she's just like, nothing. He literally says, how can we have a relationship if we're not honest with each other? And he's like, just tell me. And she's like, I know you have a harem. And he's like, who said that? And she says, Raisha. And he's like, the girl that hates you? She's like, yeah. He's like, okay. Anyways, he's like, yeah, I do have a harem. Let me show you. And Alexa's like, no, that sounds awful. And he's like, no. Like, I'll show you. Long story short, they go out on their horses, and his harem is a bunch of falcons or hawks, birds of prey. It's a bunch of birds of prey, very expensive ones. And he's just, very much like surfs up, like, this is Linda. This is Tamika.
This is Jill. This is my lady Amy. Little Susie. Brianna. You know why we call her Brianna, right? Yeah.
Very much that kind of situation. And so Alexa's like, oh, foof, big foof. And he tells her, he's just like, look, I know it bothers you with me with other women. And he's like, so to make you happy, you will be my only woman. He's like, I don't need anybody else. I'm good. Real quick, they're of course attacked while they're out there. Tabor and his men come and attack them, and chaos ensues, and they both like romantically save each other, yada, yada, yada. Not important. They make it back home. Sharif's kind of understanding that his enemies are always going to be after Alexa. She is a literal huge white target on his back. And he's just like, fuck. She is going to be a problem, politically wise. Meanwhile, Alexa is realizing how much she loves Sharif. She's becoming like absolutely enamored with him. You're happy to see it. You're happy to see it. She's just like, I don't like being away from him. I'm so happy. And he sends her roses. Remember the astrologer in his roses with thorns prediction. He sends her roses, and she picks them up. Oh my God, they're beautiful. Raisha's there because Alexa keeps letting her back in, even though Sharif keeps kicking her out. And he's like, stop coming around my wife. And Alexa's like, oh, she's just sad because I'm with you. Who wouldn't be? Let me keep torturing her, essentially.
So, can I carry your books to class?
Sure, Noreen. After all, you are my best friend. Oh, here comes Doug. Go away.
Sure.
No, stay.
Okay.
No, leave.
Fine.
No, stay and pretend I just said something really funny.
But Alexa's naive, and she just truly thinks like, oh, poor Raisha, she needs a job. Like, of course she can come be my little lady's maid person. And Raisha's just like, I'm happy to help. And these flowers make... No. Okay, I spoiled it. These flowers make Alexa sick. The thorn on it pricks her finger, and she becomes very sick. And Sharif travels everywhere to find this legendary giant black doctor. And I say big black doctor because that is literally what he is. He's like 6'4", big old guy. He kind of sounded like Dr. Sweet from the Atlantis movie.
Sweet. Joshua Sweet. Medical officer.
Yeah, Milo Thatch.
Milo Thatch. Give him a 3 o'clock. Well, no time like the present.
Anyways, and he's a great guy, and he travels back to save Alexa, and he's like, she's been poisoned. It will pass because she's young and healthy, but she's been poisoned. And so Sharif's just like, who the fuck poisoned my girl? Meanwhile, the doctor's looking at Fatima, and he's just like, hey girl. And he tells Sharif, he's just like, I know you kind of like a slender woman, but in my country, we love a big plump, piece of meat. And he's like, we don't like a little bag of bones, that kind of thing. And Fatima's, kind of like, hey. And so they have a flirtation. And Raisha is sitting there eating some snacks next to the roses. And Sharif comes to inspect the roses. And Raisha's like, don't touch those. And Sharif's like, why? She's like, just don't touch them. And she tries to put the moves on the prince. And she's just like, I can take your mind off of your sick wife. Remember me? And he kind of thinks about it for a second, but then he pushes her away. And he's just like, no, like my wife's going to be so hurt if I did that. And I'm kind of like, well, you shouldn't do it because you love her, not because she'd be mad at you, but I guess a win's a win. And Raisha is even more pissed. If she wasn't trying to kill Alexa before, she is cartoon anger eyes pissed at this point. So we do some sleuthing and we find out that Raisha knew the guy who had the roses and all that stuff. She dipped him in poison because the guy that delivered them, she slept with him. And like while he was kind of like relaxing after, she dipped him in poison. And Sharif's just like, God, I want this woman away from me. He's so tired of her. And he finally is just like, get out. Do not come back. Leave me and my family alone. I don't care if my wife begs and cries for you to come back. Like, you are banished from this kingdom. I never want to see you again. And this, of course, like I said, sends Raisha just like piss. Oh, and when he's interrogating like the guy that delivered the roses, he does this thing where he has a bowl of flour and he makes the guy dip his hand in flour because a liar will have sweaty palms and the flour will stick. And if you're telling the truth, it'll come clean. And it does come clean. But I'm just kind of like, I have naturally very sweaty hands. I would be so screwed in any situation. Okay. Skip to, here we are like at the big climax of the book. Alexa's recovering. She's with her girlies. She's with Muriel. Muriel showed back up, you know, the ex-fiance of Kudar. She shows back up. She's a much better friend than Raisha. Raisha is out scheming in the depths of the night with Tabor and his men. Meanwhile, Kudar comes back. Keen has evaded Kudar's clutches. He is now seen as a white devil. Insert Ace Ventura joke here.
He said, let me guess, white devil, white devil? Yes.
And Kudar's like, where is his sister? Where is the girl? And Sharif is like, no, you don't need her. No. And meanwhile, the king's kind of like, why do you want Sharif's wife? Like, what does she have to do with it? And Kudar tells his side of the story of this man. Her brother raped my ex-fiance and ruined her, and now I can't have her, like, I can't use her anymore. And you're kind of like, And he has evaded people, he's killed our people, he's a monster, we can't catch him. So his sister, you know, seed of the womb or whatever kind of rule, his sister must be punished for his crimes because it's like the closest thing we can get to it. And Sharif's just like, that's a barbaric rule, we should really change that. Alexa is the kindest woman. She's converted. She's a part of this community. You're letting your jealousy and rage control you. And Kudar's like, well, you're letting your love control you. And you can kind of see, remember, jealousy and love ride the same horse, and brothers fed from the same breast will turn into enemies. You're seeing that prediction come true. Kudar is raging mad. He can't see straight. Sharif is obviously desperately in love. He can't see straight. And the king's just like, And Alexa is listening in to her fate, freaking out. She leaves because everybody's pretty sure the king's going to rule in Kudar's favor, because that is technically the more just favor. Because if he rules in Sharif's favor, chaos will ensue because everybody's going to be like, well, you're just favoring him because he's married to the girl. Like, this is the way our laws are, you know. And Alexa's kind of seeing that written on the walls. And so she starts running away. You know, like there is an evacuation plan for when this was going to happen. But after she leaves, remember the guy that married them and had the blue eyes? He steps up. I think his name's like Malik or something. He steps up. And he's like, well, why worry about the seed when you can have the tree it came from? Reveals himself. It's their dad. It's Keen and Alexa's dad. He's alive. What? Like, I freaked out when I read that. I was like, oh. Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's freaking out. Even Sharif is just like, what? And the king is like, oh, that is your daughter. Duh. That's Alexa. That's little Alexa from back in the day. And then like James, their dad, is just like, yeah, man, that's like my kids. And he's just like, okay, I thought it was just another little white kid. Oh, I love Alexa. And he was like, oh, she's like a daughter to me. And James is just like, yeah. And you're like wanting to have her raped in front of an entire court as punishment. And, and like the king's just kind of like, my hands are tied, man. Like, I can't do anything. We will have political unrest if this is not held up to our laws. And so the king has to rule in Kudar's favor. And Sharif and James, her father, are just like, we've got to go get Alexa out of here and figure it out later. We've got to get her out of here. And so Alexa's in a tunnel and her father gets to her and they have a reconvening. And let's hear his backstory. Let's hear why James is not dead and has been living here in this kingdom the whole time. A wavy montage to the past. They're on the boat to England and the baby Keen dies. The mother is also sickly. She is very delirious, and the only thing that will make her happy is to have her baby. Where is baby Keen? Where is baby Keen? James is beside himself. He does not know what to do. He does not know how to tell his wife that the baby has passed. And a German captain shows up of the ship, and he says, how much are you willing to make your wife happy again? And James is like, why? And the German guy is like, because there is a sex worker on ship. She has a 1-month-old baby that she does not want, and she will probably gladly sell him to you for your wife. And James is like, that is crazy. I would never do that. That's insane. And then they overhear his wife just wailing to have her baby again. She's very sick, very delirious, and she's just so upset. And just the thought of telling her that her baby is dead is absolutely no. And so James is like, all right, show me the girl. And the girl sells him Keen 2. And she's an awful person. You kind of get where Keen gets his instincts from. She's not a nice lass. She's very rude. She's very abusive to the baby. She's very mean. And James pays her and he's like, I never want to see you again. And she's just like, oh yeah, like you'll never see me again. Meanwhile, a few years later, they're a happy family. Knock on the door. It's Keen's biological mother again. And James is just like, I don't know who you are. I've never heard of you. And she's like, of course you have. And if you do not acknowledge who I am and pay me a monthly allowance, I will tell your wife everything. And so she blackmails him and she bleeds them dry. And that is why the family has lost all of their fortune. And she has bled them dry over the years, so much so that the only way out, in order to save his children and his wife from poverty, is life insurance. So he goes on an archaeological dig and it crumbles all around him, but he survives, but he kind of sees it as an opportunity to save his family from this woman. And so he fakes his death, and he is friends with the king at the time. Remember, they all grew up together. And so the king helps him out and gives him a wife and an identity and a job and clothes and all this stuff and a new name. And Alexa is feeling a lot of emotions. She's like, Keen's not my biological brother. You are not dead, but I understand why you did that. She's like, I'm not super into why you did it, but I can understand the realm. And she's like, look, we're in a tunnel. I'm about to die. I just had my dad show up after like 9 years. Probably not the best time to hold grudges. So they make up. It's very sweet. But her dad's very old. And so he's like, I'm going to sit right here and I'm not leaving your side. But he falls asleep because he's old. One of the king's wives is helping her. And she's like, look, just go at the end of this tunnel and Sharif will be waiting for you. I promise. Alexa goes to the end of the tunnel. It is Raisha and Tabor's henchmen. And you're like, damn it, they beat him. They beat Sharif. Chaos ensues. Her and Raisha get in a really big fight. Like Alexa, beats the piss out of her. And, she grabs her jaw and like Raisha's on top of her and punching her. And then like Alexa like gets her jaw and like starts like, you know, like pushing up and stuff. Like it's a really descriptive scene, and they just beat the shit out of each other. But as soon as Alexa gets up, Tabor's henchmen get her. And now she's like, well, I'm gonna die. They go to Tabor's encampment, and here we see this mythical, awful enemy, Tabor. And it's a white guy. It's a green-eyed or hazel-eyed, blonde-haired white guy. And Alexa's like, huh? Who are you? And he says that there's a lot of Caucasian tribes up here. Like he's Middle Eastern, but he has Caucasian blood in him, which is not unheard of, but you're just kind of like, okay, it could be worse. Let's be honest, it could be worse. It could have been a Disney thing of the bad guy could be a hooked nose, dark, slinky, like we've seen it before. So it was a white guy. Well, it was a white skinned guy. You're kind of like, okay, creative. And he turns to Raisha, and this is where we get her demise. He's like, thank you for finding her. Thank you for selling out the prince. Your reward is you get a night with me. And Raisha's kind of like, I was hoping to get immunity and like maybe money or something. Like, I don't really want, like, she can't be like, I don't want you, but she's just kind of like, I'm flattered. I would gladly just take like immunity, you know, or like protection or money or anything else, you know, something tangible. And Tabor's just like, well, I can't because I have to kill you afterwards. I have to kill you tomorrow. And Raisha's, why? Why, my lord? And Tabor says, well, because you threw the man that you loved for so many years under the bus as if it was nothing because you were jealous of his wife. I am nothing to you. He's like, I don't have near the relationship you had with Prince Sharif. You will immediately sell me out to save your own skin if that's what you did to the man you love, which point made, Tabor. And he's like, so yeah, I have to kill you, Earl. Like, thank you for your service, and I'll sleep with you to give you like a night of heaven before you go to hell. But yeah. And so Raisha grabs a knife and tries to kill him. And she kind of gets him. She kind of cuts him a little bit. And he's like, no, you did not just cut Tabor. And so she starts running. And he tells his men, first one to catch her, kill her. Rape her to death. And he's like, I don't care what y'all do to her. Gang, individual, her dead body, destroy her. And so you kind of understand that Raisha is killed by that. She is met with a very awful demise. And Alexa's just kind of like, ooh, a little nervous. Sharif comes. Heroic battle ensues. He saves Alexa. Him and Alexa both like save each other throughout the battle. Like Alexa gets some licks in and Sharif gets in, and they take over Tabor's camp. They defeat him. He's not dead, but they defeat him and set his whole encampment on fire. And it's actually this cool scene of like the whole encampment's on fire, like surrounded. And Sharif's on that like horse, remember? Like the horse is kind of important. He's on this bad boy. That horse. And Tabor's just like, you have nowhere to go. Your horse is not about to jump through fire without knowing what's on the other side. Won't happen. You're mine now. I have you and your wife. And Sharif's just like, you really underestimate, you know, the people who love me, including my horse. And the horse jumps through the fire without even, they don't know what's on the other side. Could be more flames, could be something, but anything is better than the hands of Tabor. They go back home. Sharif wants to divorce Alexa at this time because he has the point of, as long as Alexa is alive, his enemies will constantly be after him, especially Kudar. And he makes the point of, we cannot go home because my dad, the king, has demanded that you are given to Kudar. He's like, so I'm the prince. I can't leave my home. He's like, in order to protect my kingdom and to protect you, the woman I love, I have to let you go. And he makes the whole setting a bird free thing, yada, yada, yada. Alexa at this time is absolutely against it. She says, no, I will never leave you. And you're kind of like, you love to see it because she was fighting so hard in the beginning, her feelings, and now she's completely in love with him. They're in love with each other. It's so beautiful. They're crying. I'm crying reading them. And he, in order to divorce her, he has to say some words like 3 times. And he says them, and each time you're just like, stop it. Don't say it again. Don't. And he says it 3 times. So they're technically divorced. And it's awful. And he's like, I'm taking you back to the French Legion army. They will take you home. And it's just terrible and awful. Let's jump back to what's Keen up to? What's Keen been doing? Well, Keen has been circling around the desert as usual. He don't know where the fuck he's going. He's just like around. He runs into Kudar again. Kudar sees him in the horizon. It's just like, that mother, I finally found him. I'm going after him. And Keen notices, which is weird for a foreigner to notice and not a guy who's grown up on the desert. But anyways, he notices quicksand. And he angles himself to where when Kudar runs after him, he falls into quicksand. And so Keen's just sitting there just like, Kudar, I'm right here. And Kudar is so enraged by anger, I guess, and jealousy and rage that he clouds his judgment and his observational skills. And he just walks his camel right into quicksand and dies. And at this point, everybody is terrified of Keen. They think he is literally like the devil reincarnate because he just has amazing strokes of luck. And these guys are just like, we are fucking out of here. And so they leave him alone. Keen makes his way back to the French Legion army. He shows up and the commander's just like, where have you been? What the hell happened? Keen gives this huge story. He's kind of like Lyle from George of the Jungle, where he's like smashing the berries and he's just like, there was 75 ape men, you know.
It was 400-pound white ape, man. The white ape has my girlfriend. I held him up as long as I could. Blood everywhere. He weighs 400 pounds.
And so Keen's given his recounting of the tale, which is drastically not true. And the commander's just like, wow, you are a hero. And you get the gist that like the commander knows something. And the commander's just like, you need a medal. And Keen's like, I don't deserve a medal, but if you have one. And the commander's just like, you know who should like give you that award and commend you? And he opens the door and it's all of those people that Keen left to be tortured and dead in the desert. It's like the Irish cook and like the other guys. And he's like, your comrades that you left in the desert to die. And Keen's like, fuck. And so he's in deep doo-doo trouble. He's in trouble. And he is obviously arrested and is given a jail sentence. Sharif shows up with Alexa. You got to take her back. She's going to die out here. I've got Kudar. You know, they kind of like share their versions of the story and form what really happened. And the commander's just kind of like, thank you for bringing her. However, we have to execute you to Sharif. And Alexa's like, why? And the commander's like, well, his camp tortured and killed our guys. He has to be executed. And Sharif is an honorable man. You know, he's a warrior. And he understands. He's just kind of like, I get it. And Alexa's in between them just like, no. And Sharif's just kind of like, no, this is what has to happen. He's like, this is just, we have to have law and order in the desert. This is how it has to happen. I did kill those men. I did ask them to be tortured for answers. And Alexa is obviously beside herself. Alexa is watching a firing squad line up to execute her husband. He is wrapped in the famous indigo cloak that he always wears. She only sees his eyes. Okay, and so the firing squad is there. They're all lining up. A lot of these guys aren't super into it. The commander is having to tell them like, hey, stiff lip, this is our job. Don't flinch, you'll make it worse. The commander asks the condemned, do you have any last words? The man says, just tell Alexa that I'm sorry. Would you, O'Day? Tell her that it's better this way for everyone. And they fire and shoot, and a dead body falls to the ground. Now we cut to Alexa, obviously very upset, in the little army room, in the corporal's room. And she's trying her best because before Sharif was condemned and killed, he told her, you are the wife of like his warrior name or something. I don't know it. It's in a different language. But he's kind of like, you're the wife of a prince. You're the wife of the Desert Hawk. You will not cry. You will have a stiff lip, and you will watch me go in honor, and you will represent everything that we represent together. He's just kind of like, you are a warrior just as much as I am. And so she is trying her best to keep it together, to make Sharif proud. She's telling the sergeant, I don't agree. I don't agree with it, but I understand. We have to have law. The commander leaves, and he's like, there's someone who wants to see you. And at this point, you're thinking it's Keen, because remember, he's in prison at this place. And it's Sharif. Sharif is not dead. And they embrace, and Alexa thinks she's hallucinating. She says, I saw you die. I saw you get shot. What happened? Turns out her brother Keen took Sharif's place because there's some loophole in the law where a prince can have someone die or get executed or, receive his punishments for him because he's royalty. And Keen knew this. And so Keen wore Sharif's clothes and was executed for her. And that's kind of like you go back to when it said, tell Alexa this is better for everyone. And that he was sorry. And so Alexa is dealing with, once again, a lot of conflicting emotions of she is so happy to have the love of her life alive. But she's also really torn because her brother died. And regardless of if he was a piece of shit, he's kind of the whole reason she's out here. And so she's very conflicted with it, and she struggles through that. But they get news that not only is Keen dead, Kudar also died in quicksand. Remember that. And with the threat of Kudar out of the vicinity, Sharif's just like, we can go home. And Alexa's like, but aren't we divorced? And he's kind of like crawfishing out of that. He's like, well, only like me and you heard us like say the 3 words. So technically, like no one else knows. And she's kind of like, I ain't gonna tell if you ain't gonna tell. And so they travel back home. Everything is happy, minus all the deaths. Everything is going well. And they have this beautiful reunion. And she swears that she will never go without him anywhere. And she was like, every time we are separated, one of us nearly dies. So we will never be separated. And he's like, I'm cool with that. And it closes on them kissing. Very happy. Epilogue. You've made it this far. Don't you want to know if she ever has his babies? Cut to, they are in a tent because, they do nomadic shit. And she's in a tent giving birth. She has been pregnant. He has begged her to stay in the kingdom because she is pregnant. And she, again, is like, absolutely not. I'm never to be away from you. No. And she's like, I'm a tough cookie. I'm a tough cookie. You said I was the, wife of a desert hawk. I got to do everything you do. I'm just as tough. And he's kind of like, okay. So she's giving birth in a tent in the desert. Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. God, no. Bless the women that do that, did that, can do that. No. Sharif and all the guys are listening in. And they're all like, you're going to have a son. You're going to have a son. You're going to have a son. Oh my God, it's going to be a son. Like, they keep talking about a son. And so, of course, as a reader, you're like, this is so not going to be a son. And it's not. It's a daughter. And everybody's it's a healthy daughter. Alexa's in love, but she hands her daughter to Sharif, and she can't help but be like, I'm sorry, it's not a boy. And Sharif is like, what are you talking about? This girl is beautiful. She looks just like you. She's strong like her daddy. She's going to be a tigress like her mother. And he's so sweet. And he tells the men around him, he's just like, my daughter will rule with an iron fist. And of course we will try for a son, you know? And he's like, but until then, I have this beautiful, amazing daughter. And he's like, the only downside is you're going to get jealous again because I have someone vying for my attention besides you. And they're just like, oh, you stop it. And everything's so sweet. And the little baby's wrapped in sheep wool. And oh, it's so cute. And they name her, hold on, where is it? They name her Zora, which means the dawn star. She was conceived by the desert dawn and born under the desert dawn. No other name would be nearly as fitting. And it's just them in their tent under the stars holding their daughter. And Sharif gives this beautiful moment of when he says when it's his time to rule, he is going to change things for the better. And this is the part I really enjoyed as a modern reader, is this was really profound to read, again, for the 80s. He says that we will embrace technology. We will embrace more women's rights. You know, he's got a daughter now. And he's like, I will not have my daughter or my wife be raped for the crimes of their brothers or uncles or husbands or anybody. And he's like, we will absolutely be doing away with that law first. And he's just like, yeah, we have been out on this mountain in this desert alone for so long. We need to embrace other cultures, work with other countries. He's kind of like just wanting to progress and move with society and move up in the world. You love to see it. You love to see it. You know, Sharif is embracing progressive feminism kind of views. And again, for a 1984 novel written about the Middle East, you're just like, we love to see it. We love to see it. It closes out on the little family under the stars. And you're just like, wow, that was not what I was expecting. All right, kiddos, we've made it to the end. I hope I did it somewhat justice as to what happens in this book. Again, I highly recommend if you see this in a flea market, thrift store, Goodwill, antique shop, get it. This is a good damn book. I barely scratched the surface. There was a ton of other characters and political mishaps and intrigues and stuff. But obviously I can't really remember all of it. Next time I'm going to have to like write notes as I read, because I was just honestly reading this casually. And then I was like, oh, I should do a YouTube review of it after I read it. Don't discount these books just because you think that they're smut and stuff. I highly recommend getting one of these little novels and reading one. Now, I'm not going to say they're all hits. I'm sure there are some written by some other authors that are, you know. But this Penelope Neri, she's a good one. She's a good author. I recommend her books for sure. But yeah, if you're not super into the romances of today, which I'm super not, I don't really like them. I do not like the love hypothesis. I'm going to be bold in saying I think it's creepy to write fanfic about a real person. I think that's super messed up and weird. And to not change their name or the way they look. Do you think Adam Driver walks around and sees that book and he's just kind of like, these make Bridgerton look like an 8th grade essay. If you enjoyed Bridgerton, these will be a good elevation of that. These will be a good step up graduation to an actually good historical romance. Oh man. But yeah, I also have my husband reading a Western historical book that I found called White Squaw, and he'll give me the cliff notes of that for sure. That one might be a little more racist. That one might be a little more of its time. It was also, I think, written by a man, so I can't wait to compare and see how a historical little drugstore novel written by a man and then one written by a woman kind of handles those situations, if you will. So anyways, thank you for watching and listening to this crazy story. If you pick up any, let me know. Or if you read any, let me know. Do you have any recommendations? Any that you want me to read? Did your mom have a favorite that you have a copy of? Mail it to me. And I will see y'all all very soon.